You don't choose your thoughts. Not really. They rise before you notice. They pull you before you decide. They shape how you see the world, long before you realize you're even looking. But here's the strange part. Most of this isn't your fault. It's your brain, following rules it never told you about. Invisible rules, unspoken instructions, built-in shortcuts that shape what you feel, believe, remember, and forget. Today, we're going to explore them, one by one, quietly, carefully, like lifting a corner of reality to see what's underneath. These aren't just psychological quirks, they're the backstage crew running the show of your life. Let's meet them. The priming rule. Let's start with something deceptively simple, priming. Priming is what happens when your brain gets a silent suggestion, and then starts behaving like it was your idea. For example, you see the word yellow, and suddenly, you're more likely to recognize the word banana. You hear the word rude, and your brain becomes a little more impatient, a little more cold. Not because you wanted to feel that way, but because your mind took a shortcut. It connected dots before you knew you were even looking. The famous scrambled sentence test. In one experiment, people were asked to unscramble sentences. Some included words like polite, respect, and patient. Others had words like aggressive, bold, and interrupt. Afterward, the subjects had to wait in a hallway, while the researcher pretended to have a conversation nearby. Here's the twist. Those who'd been primed with polite words waited longer before interrupting. Those who had been shown rude words? They were more likely to butt in early. No one told them how to behave. Their behavior changed without them realizing it had. That's priming. It's not mind control, but it's mind nudging. And it happens all the time. Real life, how it shapes your day. Look around you right now, the colors, the faces, the words on your screen. They're all whispering to your subconscious. A gentle smile from a stranger might make you more generous. A flashing sale sign might make you impulsive. A dark room might make you speak softer. And you'll walk away thinking, I decided that. But the truth is, the decision was already tilted. That's the rule. Your brain listens to the background, and it quietly follows the cues. The anchoring rule. Let's talk about the price of a jar of peanut butter. If I ask you, how much should it cost? You might say, $3, or $5, or, I don't know, whatever seems normal. But here's the thing. If I tell you beforehand that some people pay $20 for premium jars, suddenly $5 doesn't feel so bad, does it? That's not a coincidence. That's anchoring. How anchoring works. Anchoring is what happens when your brain grabs onto the first number, word, or idea it sees and uses it as a reference point, even if it's meaningless. In one study, people were shown a spinning wheel with numbers on it. After the wheel stopped, they were asked, what percentage of African nations are in the UN? Those who saw a higher number on the wheel guessed higher percentages. Those who saw lower numbers guessed lower. Why? Because the wheel planted an anchor, and their brains couldn't help but lean toward it, even though it was random, even though it had nothing to do with the question. Why this matters more than you think. Anchoring doesn't just apply to trivia. It happens in job negotiations, dating profiles, restaurant menus, and even first impressions. That's why luxury brands show you the most expensive item first. It's not meant to sell, it's meant to set your anchor, so everything else suddenly seems reasonable by comparison. It's why a discount feels good even if the original price was fake. Because the brain isn't calculating, it's comparing. So what can we do? You can't stop your brain from anchoring. But you can notice when it's happening. Next time you're shown a price, a label, a title, ask yourself, is this real or just my first reference point? Because once you question the anchor, you start floating again. You become the one choosing where to land. The Zeigarnik effect, the rule of unfinished things. Why do cliffhangers work? Why do you suddenly remember a task the moment your head hits the pillow? Because your brain hates loose ends. This is the Zeigarnik effect. Named after psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who discovered that we remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. How your brain tags the incomplete. Zeigarnik noticed it when she saw waiters remembering unpaid orders, but forgetting them the moment the bill was closed. The brain, it turns out, creates little mental bookmarks, and it doesn't let them go until the task is complete. This is why we feel tension during suspenseful movies. Why unfinished conversations echo in our heads. Why to-do lists sometimes haunt us more than help us. Your brain treats incomplete like urgent, even when it's not. Real life, cliffhangers everywhere. That half-written email, that decision you keep postponing, that dream you started but never followed through, they all linger. They buzz quietly in the background. Not loud enough to panic you, just enough to drain your energy. That's the rule. The mind wants closure, and it will spend precious attention chasing it. The confirmation bias rule. Let's say you believe the world is dangerous. You'll start noticing every news story about crime. You'll remember the one time someone lied. You'll overlook the kindness in between. Why? Because your brain is looking for evidence to support what it already believes. This is confirmation bias, and it's not just a glitch. It's a system. Your brain as a pattern matcher. The human brain is wired to find patterns, but more than that, it wants to find patterns that make us feel safe, or right, or justified. So once we believe something, anything, our brain goes to work, collecting evidence. It accepts supporting data without a fight. It questions anything that contradicts us. Not because we're arrogant, but because we're human. The science, it starts early. In one classic study, participants were told a theory about how people behave in relationships. Then they were shown evidence that either supported or challenged the theory. Guess what? Most of them remembered only the supporting data. The challenging data was dismissed, ignored, or forgotten altogether. It's not that they were lying, their brains were just filtering the world to keep their beliefs intact. Social media, news, and echo chambers. Today, the internet makes this bias worse. We're surrounded by algorithms that feed us more of what we already think. Agree with something? You'll see it again, and again, and again. Disagree? It disappears. Or worse, it shows up in a strawman form so it's easy to mock. And slowly, without realizing it, you start living in a world that looks like you, feels like you, thinks like you. Until one day, someone disagrees. And it feels not just wrong, but threatening. That's the rule. Your brain doesn't want the truth. It wants the truth that feels right. The rule of social proof. Imagine you walk into a restaurant. It's late. You're hungry. There are two options. One place is crowded and buzzing. The other is empty, silent, maybe even cleaner. Where do you go? Chances are you pick the busy one. Not because you know the food is better, but because everyone else seems to think it is. That's social proof. And your brain is hardwired to follow it. The evolutionary logic. Back in ancient times, being alone meant danger. Survival came from sticking with the tribe. If everyone ran from the bushes, you didn't stop to ask questions. If they all ate the same berries, you did too. That's how we survived. Today, that instinct hasn't changed. We look for cues in the behavior of others, especially when we're uncertain. Modern examples, reviews, followers, lines. Why do we check reviews before buying? Why do we hesitate to eat at an empty place? Why do we take someone more seriously when they have 1 million followers? Because we've learned that popularity equal to trust. Even when it doesn't. We assume the crowd knows something we don't. And so we follow. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. But the rule stays the same. If others are doing it, maybe I should too, and it feels less like a decision, more like a natural drift, the illusion of control. You roll a pair of dice. You press harder, faster, as if it changes the outcome. You cross your fingers during a test. Tap the screen 3 times before posting. Avoid saying something just in case. These tiny habits feel like superstition, but they reveal something deeper. Your brain wants to feel in control, even when it isn't. The illusion explained. The illusion of control is the tendency to overestimate how much influence we have over things that are actually random or outside our hands. We play the lottery and feel lucky picking our own numbers. We wear lucky socks to a job interview. We trust a button more when we press it ourselves, even if it does nothing. This isn't just magical thinking. It's protective. When things feel uncertain, the brain looks for ways to anchor itself. A ritual, a pattern, a belief that says, I'm not helpless, I'm doing something. But there's a danger. Sometimes this illusion gives us comfort, but sometimes it makes us take blame for things we couldn't change, or make choices that don't help, just feel familiar. We confuse doing something with making progress, and that can trap us. So the rule becomes a paradox. The brain needs control, even when it's imaginary. A mind made of tricks. So now we've seen them. 6 invisible rules that quietly guide your thoughts. You're primed by the things around you. You're anchored by the first number you hear. You remember what's unfinished more than what's done. You seek confirmation, not contradiction. You follow the crowd, even when you don't mean to. Then you crave control, even if it's just an illusion. And here's the strange part. These rules aren't flaws, they're features. They're shortcuts your brain uses to save time, to reduce uncertainty, to keep you safe. But they don't always serve you. Sometimes they guide you away from clarity, from growth, from truth. So the question isn't, how do I get rid of them? Because you can't. You're human. And these are the fingerprints of humanity. The real question is, can I start noticing them? Waking up to the invisible. Imagine walking through a house with invisible walls. You bump into them constantly, but never know they're there. Now imagine one day, someone hands you a flashlight. You start to see the edges, the shapes, the way they bend the path you thought was free. That's what awareness does. You don't have to destroy the rules. You just have to see them. When you feel an impulse, you pause. When something seems obvious, you ask why. When you're sure you're right, you look again. And in that moment, you step outside the autopilot, even just a little. That's where change begins, not with control, but with curiosity. If something in this video made you pause, if it tugged on a thought you've had, or lit up something you didn't have words for before, then don't keep it to yourself. Tell someone. Start a conversation. Ask them what rules they think they're following without knowing it, or leave a comment, not just to share an opinion, but to open a door, because the more we talk about these quiet forces, the more visible they become. And maybe that's the point. Not to outsmart the mind, not to win against it, but to walk through life with our eyes a little wider. Your brain will keep following the rules. But you don't have to follow them blindly, not anymore.